Hi everyone. In today's video, what I will be talking about is, as the title implies, is how to get clear skin. So keep in mind that it's different for each person. Like everyone has different types of skin. Everyone has a different body chemistry. Everyone has different sensitivities. And everyone just, is different. So what works for me might not work for you. However, I've noticed that this does work for me. So I'm hoping that if it works for me, it should work for you too. I know that sometimes you'll watch a YouTube video and that says, oh, how to get clear skin, and it just doesn't work for you. But I want you to understand that this really does work for me. I am not on any antibiotic right now. I'm not wearing any makeup on my face. This is my skin. And keep in mind that it's come a long ways. Like I used to break out a lot when I was younger. So when I remember, like when I was very young, I didn't break out at all actually. So when I was like up till maybe 14 years old, 15 years old, I never broke out. And then all of a sudden when I got to the age of like 16, 17, I started breaking out suddenly, and I used to have super clear skin, so it was so disappointing that no matter what I try to do, like exercise, drink lots of water, like no matter what I tried to do, I would not get clearer skin. Like my face was just horrible, right? I mean, it wasn't horrible, but it just, it wasn't what I was happy with, because I wanted clear skin. Or I at least didn't want a lot of acne on my face, right? So in this video, I'm going to talk about what works for me, and hopefully what works for me will hopefully benefit you in some way as well. All right, I want you to understand is that this will be a series. This won't just be one video and then I'm done. This is going to be a series that's going to kind of walk you through what each ingredient is and why it can break you out. All right? Another thing I'm going to do at the end of the series is I'm going to share with you my skincare routine that works for me. And I'm also going to share with you like other tips and tricks on what you can do to help you or help prevent you from breaking out. So, keep in mind when I say clear skin, I don't mean just like, flawless skin. I feel like people only on Photoshop. Maybe not Photoshop. There are people who really do have flawless skin, but I feel like what I'm trying to do is help with the ones who just suffer from acne, like who just suffer from breakouts on a daily basis, and to help minimize those breakouts just by, natural efforts, not by being on an antibiotic, because I feel like that is not a long-term solution. I tried antibiotic when I was around 19 years old, and it worked while I was on the antibiotic, but that's not a permanent solution. You can't just stay on antibiotic all the time, because that can cause sensitivity to the sun, and you get sunburned way more easily. Because I remember I had a horrible sunburn. I don't sunburn at all. I just get darker. But when I was on antibiotic, I actually sunburned. So antibiotic is not good for your skin because it's killing the bacteria that protects your skin. So you want a more permanent solution, not just, an antibiotic, because it's not realistic that you're going to be staying on antibiotic. So hopefully this will be a more permanent solution to you. Again, I am not a doctor. I'm not a professional. I don't even study this stuff on a daily basis. Well, actually, I kind of do. I've kind of studied it my whole life because I kept trying to come up with ways to prevent myself from breaking out. And it is only after constant research did I finally figure out what would work for me. And then I used my own self, as like a guinea pig to see, what would break me out. And that's what you kind of have to do as well, which I'll discuss, is like you kind of have to figure out what are your sensitivities. Because there's something that you're probably putting inside your body that is breaking you out. Unless you just, are normally predisposed to breaking out, say you broke out from birth. I don't know about that. I'm just talking to the ones who they've noticed like around puberty that they started breaking out, when they had clear skin before. And those are the ones I feel like I can help, because that was my experience. Now keep in mind that the ingredients I'm talking about, they're probably ingredients, like even if you're not avoiding the ingredients to prevent acne, you can still like avoid these ingredients just to help your body, right? Because these are horrible ingredients that are going in to your body. And so like in the future, especially if you're a woman and you ever want kids, like you don't want to be consuming these ingredients in, abundance, especially if you're going to have a baby, because it can have impacts to the fetus or, the future baby. So I'm kind of just going to give you a list of ingredients in the series, and also share with you my skincare routine at the end, and then tips and tricks of what can help to work for you as well. All right, so what BPA is that it's basically a chemical that is used in a lot of resins and plastics since the 1960s, all right? So BPA was something that was discovered, and that they thought, oh, we can use this in plastic. And they've been using it ever since in plastic, all right? BPA is also a petroleum byproduct, all right? So what this means is it's basically a chemical that was, originally derived from petroleum. It was left over from that petroleum making process, all right? So BPA is the number one ingredient that I would say to avoid if you don't want acne, okay? All right, so BPA was first discovered in 1934 at IG Farben, all right? You can go here if you wish to learn more about the history of this company. But it soon caught on to use BPA for various uses like epoxy resins and plastics. However, more importantly, it was discovered that BPA acted as an artificial estrogen and found it had the possibility to be as effective as estradiol, if modified a bit. It was modified as a drug called diethylstilbestrol, all right? So, and it was used for women in the past with a history of recurrent miscarriage, hormone therapy for menopausal symptoms, and estrogen deficiency symptoms in women. So it was basically used also for the treatment of prostate cancer in men and breast cancer in women, but it also had other uses as well, all right? So basically they were using this, BPA, as something that was purported to, help with these symptoms. However, unbeknownst to so many individuals, that au contraire, it actually caused these symptoms to occur. All right? So, it sounded so great, right? This treatment. However, it was then later found to have affected the health horribly, and in fact led to adverse health outcomes like linked to DES, which included infertility, miscarriage, ectopic pregnancy, preterm birth, stillbirth, infant death, menopause prior to age 45, breast cancer, cervical cancer, and vaginal cancer. All right? It also caused clear cell carcinoma, a rare vaginal tumor in girls and women who had been exposed to this medication in utero, as well as a whole list of other things that could go wrong. All right, so there was a whole list of other things as well that could go wrong in the results of this drug. Not so great now, is it? So even though I avoid BPA for, acne, but look at the other things that it causes. Acne was just a small symptom in light of what it could actually do, right? So that's why I say that BPA should definitely be avoided. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I'm telling you, BPA should definitely be avoided, okay? All right. Next. So if you're trying to figure out, if you're trying to figure out what to stay away from that has BPA in it, so let me tell you. First of all, canned goods, all right? Canned goods have BPA, all right? So stay away from canned goods whenever possible, especially tomato, right? Canned goods that have tomato in them. Tomato is very acidic, so BPA is placed into the liner of the can. And by placing BPA in the liner of the can, it kind of acts as like a preservative for those beans or those tomatoes or whatever the can is, preserving. However, things that are more acidic can erode away at that can, right? The lining of the can, leach into those produce. So tomatoes, beans especially as well, really anything. You should stay away from canned goods because even if it says BPA free, they might have used something else that's very similar to BPA to act as in the lining of that canned good. So I personally, I'm saying again, you don't have to, but I personally stay away from canned goods because whenever I consume something that has a canned good, I break out like immediately and it lasts for like 2 weeks. It's the most horrible breakout I have had. Not to mention, as I noted in the history, which I'll continue to note, is that it's just really bad for you. Another thing that contains BPA, is just, I already said it, plastic. So don't warm something up in the microwave, right? Please don't warm anything up in the microwave in plastic because that can also, that heat or the whole process that it undergoes, that plastic, that BPA, it can leach into your food. You don't want that, right? So again, stay away from plastic as well. Another thing that you don't necessarily eat, and I don't particularly worry about, I didn't notice any I didn't notice any breakouts from this, but feed paper from the store, whenever you check out, they hand you a receipt. Most receipts contain BPA, all right? So that can also get absorbed into your skin as well. So those are the main 3 things that I avoid. So whenever possible, whenever possible, I avoid receipt paper. Not to mention it's very good for the environment as well because chances are that receipt is going to end up in the trash somewhere, on the ground somewhere, and then who knows where it goes from there. It can seep into the water supply, seep into your environment. And it can cause a boatload of issues, right? So just as a reminder, those are 3 main things that have BPA in them that I avoid. So just going more into how BPA works, going more into the impacts of BPA. So the way BPA works, why it gets to us so bad, is because it mimics the hormone called estrogen. All right, it's basically females. We have a hormone called estrogen in us, and if here you have BPA, bisphenol A, mimicking our hormone, then it's going to act as like an endocrine disruptor, right? So I'll talk more about that later. But BPA also has a cumulative effect, which is basically saying it's built up over time. So not only does, as you consume BPA, does it build up over time. So that's another thing. Like you break out from BPA, it's going to be in your system a while, right? It's going to take I think it takes about 2 weeks for my body to expel it, But it's going to be in your system a while, and for a while, it'll be mimicking your female hormones, right? And so that's why it's an endocrine disruptor, right? It disrupts your endocrine system that controls your hormones. It may disrupt normal hormone levels in development in babies and children. So babies and children are the most sensitive. So do not expose them to BPA if you don't have to, all right? Because, it's dangerous, especially for babies and children. It may cause infertility issues in women and men. So yeah, it may cause infertility issues in women and men. So if you have infertility issues, you might want to not, consume those things that have BPA in them, because it maybe, who knows? I feel like it's worth a try if you're trying to get pregnant, to go ahead and not consume those items with BPA, because they can disrupt your endocrine system and it can also cause those infertility issues as well. All right. It can cause brain and behavior problems in children and infants. All right. Also, studies show that BPA may be linked to conditions like PCOS, obesity, diabetes, cancer, and other health problems. So those are also things you should be wary of with this ingredient. So keep in mind, I'm just saying that I don't eat it because of the acne, but even if you don't have acne from BPA, I feel like it's still worth not consuming. It's still worth not putting in your body because of all of these other harmful effects. Okay? All right, moving on. So when guys consume BPA in high amounts, it can cause various effects as well. There have been studies shown that it could promote breast growth in boys and men. It can decrease their sperm count. And it can also cause PCOS, cancer, acne, androgynous effects for women. All right? So, it gave men those womanizing effects, but it's giving women those androgynous effects. All right? So keep that in mind as well. Here I'm going to list a few articles about the data and observations, all right? So they're going to pop up on the screen here shortly. So in my personal experience and in my observations, anytime I consume canned goods, just going back to why I avoid BPA, but anytime I consume canned goods, I get these huge cysts on my chin and the lower part of my face, all right? And they take about 2 weeks to go away. They appear on my skin about less than a day after consumption of the BPA product. So again, the reason why I know it's because of the BPA is because every single time I consume BPA, it's no coincidence that that's when I break out, right? And if I don't consume BPA, my skin is so clear as it wants to be. But as soon as I consume BPA, that is when I break out. That is no coincidence for me, okay? Not only does it make me break out, but I'm like, I wonder why I break out. And then I read all of these other harmful effects as well, right? So, yeah. When I was younger, in my 20s, I ate a lot of canned goods and ended up having surgery to remove a cyst from my ovary. So the cyst was not there before the consumption of canned goods, which caused me to miss many periods as well. So if you're missing your periods, maybe not when you're younger, but when you get older and you're in your 20s and you're missing your periods, you're not pregnant, that should not be happening. You should not be missing your periods. That means something's going on, right? Okay. So I was missing my periods, and then when I had surgery to remove this huge cyst from my body, they saw that it was all filled with blood. So I knew that it was because of the BPA I had consumed from all those canned goods, because I was going through a phase where I would just consume canned good after canned good after canned good every day, because I didn't have a healthy diet when I was in college, right? So I paid those consequences. I paid for it. And now I'm trying to help share my knowledge with you based on what I have learned, okay? So at that time, I didn't know about BPA, but I knew as I was consuming the canned goods that my body was undergoing changes and my stomach was becoming stiffer to the touch. So if your stomach's really stiff right here, if it doesn't, it's supposed to squeeze in, right? Mine squeezes in now. It's supposed to squeeze in. But if it's stiff and it doesn't squeeze in, it means something is right there, okay? Something's there. And it might have been due to some type of endocrine disruptor. In my case, BPA. Just letting you know. All right, so again, what is my evidence? What is my research for this? All right, so let me tell you. So this first article talks about the effects of exposure of human fetuses to man-made estrogenic chemicals. Exposure to the estrogenic chemical, BPA, occurs through food and beverages because of significant leaching from polycarbonate plastic products in the lining of cans. All right, so in the lab mice, they did a study and basically exposed lab mice to levels of BPA that are basically the same amount of dose a pregnant woman would be exposed to. A little less exposure in the mouse, actually, comparatively. So basically it was like a little less exposure in the mouse than what a pregnant woman would normally undergo, right? If we were to compare them. What do we see the effects were? All right, for one, we saw that in the male mouse fetuses, it made mouse fetuses, both ethinylestradiol and BPA, produced an increase in the number and size of dorsolateral prostate ducts and an overall increase in prostate duct volume. So basically what this is saying is that it affected the mouse's prostate, okay? And this was in the male mouse. Number 2, the urethra was malformed in the colliculus region and was significantly constricted where it enters the bladder, which could contribute to urine flow disorders. So if you have a urine flow disorder, may consider cutting down on BPA as a possibility as well. All right, number 3, these effects were the same as when humans were exposed to DES, right? We talked about DES later, a drug derived from BPA. Well, those are very similar effects that humans underwent when exposed to that drug, DES, right? So is it really a coincidence that mice exposed to BPA are experiencing the same symptoms? No, because if humans have already experienced these symptoms through the drug DES, then of course the mice would as well. Okay? All right. So it was determined that the acceleration in the rate of prostate cells division during fetal life by small amounts of estrogenic chemicals could permanently disrupt the prostate and lead to disease in adulthood. So that's why it's important not to consume BPA within your system. Again, guys, I'm not a doctor, but I feel like there's very strong, you can't ignore this evidence. It's very strong evidence to prove that BPA is not good for you. All right. The second article here discusses how BPA altered sexual differentiation in painted turtles. So here you have a species of turtles, right? And so why are turtles so significant is because they're used as an index, right? Or an indicator species. They're used as an indicator species to help us determine what's going on in the environment, all right? So they can be used as a barometer for the health of the entire ecosystem. And by understanding the possible effects endocrine disrupting chemicals have on turtles, researchers might be able to understand the possible effects such compounds have on other species as well. So what was done to these turtles? So first we kind of took some turtles and we incubated them, right, at male permissive temperatures. So basically we incubated them at the temperatures that were ideal for male turtles to be born, all right, for male turtles to be born. All right. So after we did that, what did we see were the effects? So we noticed that those exposed to BPA developed deformities to testes that held female characteristics. So let me say that again. The turtles that were exposed to BPA, that should have been born male, they were exposed to BPA, they developed deformalities to testes that held female characteristics. Isn't that scary? Like, all because of the exposure to BPA. That's the only reason. BPA is the only reason that they form those deformalities. Elevated levels of BPA in their environment. All right? So there were other studies done to determine that the genetic effects of BPA had on these turtles as well. So not only were they changed physically, they were changed genetically. All right? That's something to consider, right? As you are consuming BPA. Okay. So this article talks about what PCOS is and the role of BPA and other endocrine disruptors play in causing that disease to occur in women. All right? So let me say this hard again. So the third article, all right? So in this third article that I show you here on the screen, is basically just talking about what PCOS is and how BPA is playing a role, right? As well as other endocrine disruptors playing a role in causing this disease to occur in women. So PCOS stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome. All right, let me say that again. PCOS stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome. And BPA is one of the endocrine disruptors that's causing this disease to occur in women. And to be honest, I would not be surprised if this was the main ingredient that was the cause. Okay, so PCOS is the most common and the most heterogeneous endocrine disorder in premenopausal women. So very common. Apart from signs of hyperandrogenism, such as acne, hair loss in women, PCOS is the most common and the most heterogeneous endocrine disorder in premenopausal women. Apart from signs of hyperandrogenism, such as acne, developing male characteristics like excess hair on the face or hair loss from the head, women with PCOS usually present with menstrual irregularities and fertility problems as well. Additionally, they are often characterized by impaired glucose intolerance, so they can't really withstand sugar as well either, which usually leads to the development of type 2 diabetes. The study conducted showed increasing evidence of how BPA, which is commonly used as a plasticizer, and due to its molecular structure, can interact with estrogen receptors. Recent observations point to the higher levels of BPA in biological fluids of women with PCOS and its role in the pathogenesis of hyperandrogenism. All right, and hyperinsulinemia. It seems that mothers' exposure to BPA during pregnancy may also lead to the development of PCOS in the female offspring. Other studies have been done, and it was noticed that levels of BPA in the blood of healthy weight women compared to that with PCOS were 60% higher as compared with controls. BPA levels were 30% higher in obese women with PCOS. So it only took a 30% increase in obese women, 30% increase of BPA in obese women, and a 60% increase in BPA in non-obese women. All right? So keep that in mind. All right, so the fourth article also discusses how BPA and BPA substitutes can trigger fat cell production, basically spurring obesity. So it was found that BPA can turn normal cells into fat cells, like basically spurring obesity. I can find loads of studies, right? I can find loads of studies on how BPA is dangerous for you. Not to mention my own personal experience as well. So I have my own personal experience as well. But BPA has also been banned in other countries because of these effects. So keep these studies in mind as you consume any BPA-touched product. So also, there's something else, like, I want you guys to understand, there's a lot of conflicting information. Keep in mind that you can have varying information. You'll notice that I have studies that show how BPA is bad for you, but just how there are studies that show that BPA is bad for you, you could probably find some that say it's good for you as well. But in those studies, you have to figure out who is conducting them, all right? So with any research article, you have to figure out who is conducting them. So if you have a BPA company and they're in charge of making these BPA articles, do you think they're going to put out an article saying that BPA is bad for you? No, they're making money from the BPA. Why would they put out an article saying, oh, BPA is bad for you? They're making money from BPA. So you have to understand that you want to read articles, you want to gather your research from someone who has nothing to gain from the contrary information. You can't read an article from someone who, like for another example, say someone has a dairy milk, right? And do you think, I don't know, what's a popular brand of stuff? Hot Cheetos. We'll say Hot Cheetos, okay? So say someone put out an article and said, oh, Hot Cheetos is good for you. But turns out that those Hot Cheeto makers, are the ones who put out that article. So of course they're going to put out an article saying, oh, Hot Cheetos are good for you. They're the ones who made the Hot Cheetos. They want you to buy more Hot Cheetos for you to consume, right? But someone who has nothing to gain does the study and does the research. And it's like, actually, from our research, and guys, keep in mind, we have nothing to gain, nothing to lose from this research. We're just doing this research because it's fun. We just want to get accurate information. And we found that Hot Cheetos is actually bad for you, right? So who are you going to believe? The ones who make the Hot Cheetos saying, oh guys, this is good for you, just buy more of it? Or are you going to believe the ones who have nothing to gain from it, who just want to conduct the study? All right, so keep that in mind as you are gathering your research, as you are reading anything data related, as you are paying attention to any news source even. Think, what do they have to gain? What do they have to lose? If they have nothing to gain or lose, then, maybe they're reliable. But if they have something to gain, they have something to lose, and they have motive to not be truthful, to not be unbiased. All right? Also, keep in mind that make sure that the ones who are coming out with the article aren't funded by the ones who are pushing for the article. Like, so if I'm Hot Cheetos, right? What if I pay somebody who's supposedly not, say Hot Cheetos is the company, and they're going to pay somebody who is not associated with Hot Cheetos to do the article. But in fact, they are associated with Hot Cheetos because they just paid them to do an article that would be beneficial to them. So even though Hot Cheetos' name isn't directly on the article, you have to understand why there's going to be some type of bias there, because they're being paid by the Hot Cheetos company to basically say, oh, like Hot Cheetos is saying like, hey, tell them this is a good product, when in fact it's not. All right? So just keep that in mind as you are consuming BPA. When you are also reading research or collecting your research, because I never say, I always tell people, do your own research, collect your own data, get your own experiences, all right? If it doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for you. But if it does, then at least you know. At least you can take steps to prevent it from happening. And at least you understand, all the other harmful effects that it can cause as well. So even though it's not giving you some instant acne, later down the line, it can give you some instant cancer, right? So we just keep that in mind. So what to use instead? Avoid canned goods, obviously. Instead of canned beans, simply buy packaged beans and let them set in water overnight and then boil to your liking. You should see my chili tutorial for more detailed information about this, right? Instead of canned tomatoes, use raw tomatoes or jarred containers, right? Instead of canned vegetables, use raw or frozen vegetables. Use glass or stainless steel for storage instead of plastics. If something says BPA free, it actually may be BPF or BPP or BPS, right? Or other such derivatives that are equally or maybe even more harmful. Avoid these things as well. Do not microwave plastic. Consume more cruciferous vegetables like broccoli. Broccoli is excellent at detoxing the liver and purifying your body. So that's what I have. I hope that this will benefit you. Please subscribe, especially if you found that this video was helpful, especially in helping you to understand the harmful effects of BPA, because that way I know to put out more videos like this in the future, and it'll be more information that will be helpful.